Hey everyone, it's Matt with Redline Studios here in New York, here with another Friday favorite. Friday Favorites is all about my favorite films, filmmakers, and filmmaking equipment, both hardware and software, that I use in my everyday work as a producer, director, and editor. Today, I'm sharing one of my favorite things with you, and that is Rosco green screen paint. What's up everyone and happy Friday. Today I want to talk about something that might sound simple, but it actually makes a massive difference when you're shooting on green screen, and especially when you're working with a hard surface like a cyclorama wall, much like we have downstairs on our third floor space here at 181 Broadway. Now, I'm talking about our green screen and more specifically, the paint we use on it. At Redline Studios, we actually have two different green screen setups. One is a hard fiberglass cyc wall, permanently curved with no corners or seams. The other is a fabric-based green screen that we use when we need flexibility or quick setups or a little bit more depth of field because it's in our larger studio space downstairs. Now, different shooting scenarios call for different studio setups, and when we use the cyclorama wall, especially when we need it green, we're often painting it with Rosco paint. And when we use our cyclorama wall for green screen, we are often painting it green, obviously. Now, people are going to walk on it. It's going to get scuffed. We repaint it often, and that's why the paint choice really does matter. Now, the specific paint that we use is Rosco Ultimatte Green. And the reason we landed on it is because when we first built out our studio, I'm not going to lie, we tried to cheap out. We went to Home Depot and we grabbed the closest color of green that we could find to match chroma green, and we thought, how different could it really be? Well, it turns out it's very different. Now, the first issue we ran into was reflections. Even when the house paint says it's flat, it still has quite a bit of sheen to it. Once you put studio lights on it, that sheen turns into a glare and it turns into hot spots. On camera, that shows up as brighter patches of green, and then those patches make keying much harder later on in post. With Rosco paint, the finish is an ultra matte. It does not bounce light back at the camera, it actually absorbs it. So the green stays even across the wall, and that alone makes a huge difference. The other thing that surprised us was the color itself. Rosco isn't just making a green paint, they're using pigments designed specifically for chroma key work. The color is extremely consistent and it does not shift under different lighting scenarios. When we used regular wall paint, the green would sometimes look a little yellow, maybe a little bit blue, depending on how it was lit. That might not sound like a big deal, but I guarantee if you ask your editor or VFX person, they will say otherwise. Now, the cleaner and more predictable that green is, the easier it is to pull a good key. Another thing we noticed was the coverage. When we repainted the cyc wall, we didn't need a crazy number of coats. Rosco paint went on once evenly and kept the same finish across the whole surface. With the cheap paint, we were consistently fighting roller marks, uneven textures, and having to do multiple coats, and the areas would often reflect differently. All of that shows up on camera, even if you don't consciously notice it, and even if it's not noticeable to the naked eye. Now, let's talk about the post-production side of this. When your green screen is even, matte, and consistent, your editor has an easier job, and so you are spending less time in post and less money. There's less spill, there's cleaner edges, and there is less time spent masking and fixing things that shouldn't have been there from the first place because you used cheap paint. So, even though the paint might cost more in the upfront, it actually, in my opinion, saves you a lot of time and money later. People often ask us, why don't we just use the green screen fabric all the time? And the answer is simple. Different tools are good for different jobs. Fabric is fast, portable, and flexible, but a hard cyc wall gives you a more durable surface when a shoot needs to be more physical. It's better for body movements, stunts, and actions. It's better for flying if you're using a wire harness, maybe from the ceiling. And here's a fun fact. You ever see the movie Free Guy? Well, most of the pickup shoots that are in that film actually happened, yes, right downstairs in our little third floor green screen cyclorama studio with Mr. Ryan Reynolds himself. And I'll tell you this much, if that crew walked downstairs and saw Home Depot paint on our cyc wall, it would have been the first thing that they brought to our attention. So thankfully, we learned that lesson long before the likes of Ryan Reynolds stepped into our space. Now, the bigger lesson here isn't just about green screen paint, it's about knowing where to cut and where to not cut corners. There are places in production where you can save money, and there are places where saving money just creates more problems and costs more money in the long run. For us, the green screen surface is one of those places where doing it right up front does pay off every single time. So, that's our Friday favorite of the week. Here at Redline Studios, we use different green screen setups for different shooting needs, and when we paint our cyc wall, we are using only and always Rosco Ultra Matte green screen paint. Do you have a favorite filmmaking tool, an obscure film, or maybe a reclusive director that you think the world should know about? Write to me at insideredlinestudios@gmail.com and I'll feature it here on a future video.